Hi, I'm Kara, mom of 3, pediatric sleep expert, certified parenting coach, and founder of Well Rested Mama. Welcome to the Unswaddled podcast. Tune in every other week as we chat about baby and toddler sleep solutions, overcoming parenting challenges, and all things messy motherhood. Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of Well Rested Mama Unswaddled. This week we have Kendall. We are going to dive into finding a nanny, what to look for in a nanny. But first, we are going to talk about how we met. So my favorite question is, where did you find Kendall? And the truth is, we met online, which sounds insane. And I will tell you that, and she will vouch for me, I'm pretty crazy when it comes to the kids. And to be completely honest, finding someone online sounded crazy. Like you were going to come in and murder us.
I mean, I was nervous too.
I know. And we're going to get to that because that part's actually really good too. So you were not our first
candidate?
No, not our first nanny.
Oh.
So, do you know this story?
No, I don't know this story.
So, I was a teacher, I'm an elementary school teacher, and I used the same, what did we use?
Care.com
or whatever, to find a sitter because my maternity leave went into summer, right? And then school started. So, I had Carter was probably 6 months old.
Okay.
And when I went back, right?
Okay.
Does that make sense? So then we found a lady, and in my head, I thought finding an older person is better.
Where did you find her? Was that online?
Yeah.
Okay.
Finding them was an older person was better, right? Because they're
they
smarter.
Yeah.
So we had these interviews. I'll never forget, Jeff and I were at the kitchen table. We have no idea what the hell we're even asking, right? We're just and they're right, 50s and up probably.
Yeah.
They've had kids, so they probably are this little bitch thinks she's asking me
okay,
questions.
let's do this interview.
Yeah, exactly. Whatever. So we're asking questions, but we don't know what to ask. But anyway, I'm just you just got to feel good about it, right?
Yeah.
So we picked this lady, and she was great. She would make banana bread. I'd come home, right? It was super sweet until I checked the monitor one day.
No.
Yeah. So I'll never forget, I was teaching and I'm a new mom, right? So I'm watching him. Okay. And he's crying, but back in the old days, you couldn't see anything except their room. So I could hear the crying from the crib, but he wasn't in the crib.
Oh.
And I was that's so weird. So then I texted Jeff, and of course Jeff has the cameras for the rest of the house.
Yeah.
And we log on. She's sitting at the kitchen table with her husband or something that I've never met.
Didn't know he was coming.
Eating lunch. He brought her lunch or something. And he's laying on the tile screaming in the hallway. Carter. And I was I gotta go. And I was co-teaching with my best friend, and I looked at her and she showed me, and she's you have to leave. You have to go there. And then I go to my principal, and I'm showing him the video, and he's okay, I'm going with you. And I'm you're not coming with me. It's not that bad.
We don't need an army.
Big of a deal. But he's is this going to be safe? And I'm it's fine. I'm just going to pretend that I'm sick. So I texted him, I'm coming home. I don't feel good. Whatever. She went home, and I never talked to her again.
Oh my God.
Terrible.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And then we got a second person because I was working. So we called back a lady that we didn't choose. And she was amazing. She was she to this day will still reach out and check on Carter. She came to visit, I think, when we had Blakely, but she lives up north now. But that was traumatizing.
Yeah.
Thank
God
not
you could
okay.
Figure out what was going on. Thank you if you didn't
and
know that.
Nowadays everyone's watching, right?
Yeah.
But I was fooled, so I think that was a learning experience for me, but there was no red flags.
No. You're she makes banana bread.
Cool. So anyway, that happened, but then obviously we moved, and then I started working the Fridays down in Bradenton, and that's where we needed you.
Me.
So we got back online. We were We did it again because obviously we went from the bad experience to a good experience. So we like knew that we could use that again. And they do background checks.
Yeah. There has been controversy over care.com.
Oh, really?
Because apparently, like, recently people are finding out that background checks have been falsified and things like that.
They not use it anymore?
A lot of people don't.
What do they use? Craigslist?
There's other places. There's like Sitter
Do you know what
City.
Craigslist is?
Yes, I know what Craigslist is. There's like Sitter City, and obviously there's like nanny placement agencies and things like that.
We weren't that bougie. I had to find a new sitter.
Yeah.
And we moved to Clearwater, but you were in St. Pete, but my job was in Bradenton, which is super weird.
Yeah.
So do you remember meeting us at Jeff runs a scrapyard, which, like, you know the movie It Takes Two, where they're like, they pick her up from the junkyard?
That I don't know.
You don't know what It Takes Two is?
Mm-mm.
Mary-Kate and Ashley?
Oh, I know Mary-Kate and Ashley, but
okay,
no,
forget it.
Watch a lot of it.
But it's like a junkyard, like, you have no business going there.
Nobody
does.
So,
we were meeting you, and I remember meeting you there, right? And we were, because the idea was I would go to work, you would watch the kids at the house, but Jeff was like right next door.
But this was also the first time I met you was like meet and greet. It was like I wasn't watching the kids that day.
Yeah, of course.
But
I'm not a complete
You
psycho.
were also the first, one of the first people I met like through care.com, like in person, right? So I'm like, I don't really know what to expect. Like,
wait, like first time using it, or first time that like, someone met you before babysitting? First time.
You were one of the first people I met in person after finding you through care.com.
Oh, okay.
So I'm kind of like
you thought you were going to get murdered.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. It's in my mind.
Of course.
Like, we'll see.
I mean, we'll thought about it.
Goes.
Just kidding.
Okay. So then, and my dad's protective. He's protective. He is the dad that had Life 360. And for those who don't know, Life 360 is like Find My Friend on iPhone, but he's an Android guy. So we had Life 360, and he would track me and my brother. Not all of the time, but more so like you can see if you're speeding on there or like if, you know, he couldn't contact me and needed to find out where I was, that's where he would go. So I tell him that I'm going to meet you, and he's obviously worried. He's like, you're meeting somebody from online. Yeah. And I'm like, listen, like you.
How old are you?
18,
17,
probably 18. And I remember you being like, just so you know, like the shutters are this color now, but we're getting them painted so then they're gonna be this color. And that to me, I was like, she's real. Like she seems like, that seems like a real piece of information that somebody wouldn't lie about that, right? So I'm feeling like pretty good about it. And so I tell him that I'm going. He's like, text me when you get there. I forget to text him. So I get to your house. I'm thinking about like, how is this going to go? Like, I'm nervous. I'm meeting you for the first time. And I didn't text him. So I'm inside. I'm talking to Kara. She's like asking me questions and stuff. Blakely's there. Cutest little.
She was 6 months old.
Cutest little button. And my phone is buzzing nonstop. Like my dad is blowing me up. And like, obviously I'm older now. Like looking back, I could have just been like, sorry, but my dad thinks
Life 360 is at the scrapyard.
Yeah, his Life 360, you guys, literally shows me, this little dot, nothing around, no buildings, nothing.
No neighbors, no cows. So there are cows, but they probably don't show up on Life 360.
They don't show up on Life 360. So he thinks I'm being murdered in the middle of the woods, and my phone's going nonstop. And I was like, I don't want her to think my family's crazy. Like, I need to just push through this next like 30 minutes, and then I'll apologize to him in the car. And that's what I did.
And he was mad.
He wasn't mad. He was just like, I'm like, sorry. Yeah, if I could go back, I would have just been like, Dad, I'm fine. Or I would have been like, hey, my dad thinks I'm literally
getting murdered, which is understandable. It just kind of started. I mean, that's just right. And then you started, and then we kind of trickled to, do you want to come to our real house?
Yeah.
Remember?
At first, we were only doing like one day a week. And then I was dealing with another family that I didn't jive with completely. And I was like, would you want to use me more? And you were like, yes.
The answer's always yes.
So then we just started doing much more often. And then you had Caleb.
I had Caleb. When I had Caleb, it's actually funny because I just like handed him over to you. Remember?
Oh my God, yeah. Well, I was nervous, by the way, for Blakely to start.
Well, she was a baby
because
still.
she was a baby when I started, and I had
Oh
never
my gosh,
watched...
I remember you saying, I just want to let you know that I've never watched a baby this age before. And I was like, you'll be fine.
Yeah, I was like, I've never watched a baby under 1 before. And yeah, they were like, you're going to be good. It'll be good. And they're like leaving for date night. And I'm like, so when I make this bottle, do I just like shake it? And then like, do I heat it up? And hey, I learned on the job.
Look at you now.
Look at me now. And then when Caleb came along, I was more nervous for Blakely than I was for Caleb.
Yeah, for sure.
Because I was like, okay, I can do this. I know.
But I remember him being like 3 weeks old. And I was like, all right, I got to run down to work. Like, I'll be back maybe, you know? And then you just...
He was just this little like...
Yeah.
Like, what do I do with him?
I mean,
He's just
he was
sleeping.
An angel. I know. He was perfect.
So cute.
So yeah, I mean, I feel like we had a pretty good start.
Yeah, I think so. It was gradual.
Yeah, it was.
It was.
And
Probably
then it got super aggressive.
Yeah, now it's like really intense.
My friends used to always joke because they're always like, we need a Kendall, or everyone, you were like you were a character in our lives, like in our group of friends, not just us, but like people would like refer to like good things as Kent, like everyone would be like, Kendall, or I'm finding a Kendall or whatever. And I'll never forget them like talking about, and someone's like, who's Kendall? I'm like, oh, that's my best friend. And Jeff's like, she's not your friend.
He's like, she like, works for you.
Yes, she is. And then so like our whole group would be like, who's watching Kendall this weekend? I'm like, my best friend. Like, she's coming over. And they're like, so it's Kendall. I'm like, so no, funny. We're the same age. Like,
we're basically the same.
Everything's fine.
Everything was fine. And it still is. Well, that's funny because like even now when I meet your friends and they're like, oh my God, I have heard so much about you. And I'm like, okay.
What do you mean?
What do you mean by that?
So obviously our experience was like really good, right? Mm-hmm. But I would never, like, I would still recommend that people use those websites. I mean, I think there's great people on there. Mm-hmm. I will say though that for me, and this is obviously like personal opinion, the younger the better. You know what I mean? Because like you can teach anyone to do anything. Mm-hmm. You can't unteach people, right?
That's true.
So like there's just something about having someone older who has raised 5 kids or whatever, like no matter what, they feel like they know better, I feel like, right? Mm-hmm. Whereas you were like, what the hell am I still doing? Like, right? And I had to be like, you're just going to do this, this, and this. Yeah. And if you don't, just text me, right? Yeah. Whereas you're not like fighting that battle. So like in my head, at first I was like, oh, someone older, like he'll be safe. They know what they're doing. But then it was like a lot of like, okay, we don't do that. Or, okay, like make sure you tighten this.
It's like you have these little
car
battles.
Seat directly. It's like almost like passive aggressive, like uncomfortable. But it's not like meant to be that way. It's like as like a young new mom, you feel uncomfortable telling an older person how to like
and I'm like, tell me exactly what you want me to do and I'll do it.
Yeah. So like I would like 10 out of 10 recommend the younger people because I just feel like they want to be there. Mm-hmm. They're happy to be there, but they also like you have the capacity to like teach them and it makes it easier knowing like I taught her, like she doesn't know, like you didn't know any other way other than like the way that we did it, which made it like obviously perfect because you just did what we did. Yeah. Then it got to the point where like I obviously didn't have to tell you, like by the time Caleb came around, it was like,
here, do what you normally do.
Do what we do. Like, who cares? And like, if you weren't sure, you asked, but like, I feel like that wasn't really like a thing, right?
No.
So I think that that is just my personal advice and my personal opinion of like deciding. Like, I think age plays a huge part, but like, I hate that coming across as like, don't get someone who's older because I don't think that that's necessarily the case either.
Not for every situation.
Yeah. But like the day to day, like if you are really specific with how you like things, you need to find someone that's willing to do it how you want to do it, because otherwise you're just like the mental capacity is insane.
Yeah. And like, especially when it comes to sleep and like making sleep
Yeah.
changes and like whatever is going on, like whether you're implementing a new schedule or you're dropping the pacifier or whatever it is, like.
And like the grandma just like gives it.
Right. Like there are going to be people
like,
that are not as willing to like help you with those things, I feel.
Yeah.
Which, you know, age maybe doesn't always come into play.
No,
like,
I don't think so.
It's also like,
Yeah.
do we align?
Right. Like we've had a sitter before, like randomly that like didn't feed the kids dinner because like I didn't ask her to. Right. You know what I mean? So like some things
Crazy.
are like weird things happen no matter how old they are. But yeah, I just feel like if you can take away the anxiety of like battling someone all day, because I do think a lot of times it's easy to be like, well, at the end of the day they're safe, which is true, right?
Yeah.
Like they're safe, they're being fed, they're like cared for. It's just not the way you want them to do it.
Yeah.
I think that like you're allowed
to have preferences when it comes to your caregivers, I think. And like I had worked with plenty of families before that I didn't click with as well as we click, and I think that's fine too. Like just how you went through some nannies too, and like you have to sometimes do trial and error to figure out like who's gonna fit best with the family and like with the kids.
And even someone trying to become a nanny, like I think they could be picky too. Like this bitch is crazy. Like I don't want to do that.
Well, I like the meet and greet too.
You know,
like when it comes to using like care.com, Sitter City,
well, of course,
like anywhere like that, like even if there are like controversies happening with those things, like there are things that you can do to make yourself feel comfortable. Like we had a meet and greet, and I think that's something obviously
and Jeff was
everybody
next door the first like however times, which obviously that's not everyone's like situation, but if there's an opportunity to like you're on maternity leave or something and you're like leading up, like having them come while you're home is huge, because they can see like what it's like at home, or like even if you're working, like they're there to ask questions, and like you're getting more comfortable instead of just being like, okay, bye, it was nice to meet you, but like here's my kid. I think the number one thing is just like figuring out what's important to you as like a parent, and then finding someone that's willing to just do it.
Because we get questions that are like I know one of the questions we got, which we'll get into, is like, how do you make your nanny or your babysitter like listen or like follow the schedule that you're and to me, like my answer is like, if they don't follow your schedule, don't, like, that's not your babysitter then. Like to me, whatever family I would be working for, like I'm helping them in whatever way they need support. So like if you have preferences, like I'm following those preferences, unless it went like extremely, like unless it was something crazy. But like, yeah, I think that's important. So if you have a nanny that is not listening to you and that doesn't want to help you with those things, then maybe not the best fit.
Like there's so many people out there. It's a big old world. And not to mention, like, could you imagine going to work every day and the boss being like, how do I get her to do her job? Like, no. Like you wouldn't be there. No. Like it's not like.
So sometimes it comes down to that, where it's like, is it something that you want to fix, or is it something that would you just benefit from another person?
And like also, like let's say you found like your perfect person, right? Like giving them instruction is obviously easier for both of you, right? Because like you know what to expect, I know what I want to happen. Obviously days aren't perfect, right? But for the little guys, and I feel like this happens a lot with clients, like they'll come to us and they're sleep training, but then they have a nanny come, you know, and sometimes they're like, can you talk to them or whatever? I think, and if you agree, like giving them literally like a printout of like what you want to happen, and like a room to like leave notes or like something that didn't happen, especially with like the little babies when we're trying to like avoid that overtiredness throughout the day. Like giving them a cheat sheet, like, hey, if they don't sleep an hour and a half, like can you only keep them awake for 2 hours, or if they sleep over an hour and a half, can you keep them awake for 3 hours, and just kind of like
walk them through that.
Just like how we had to teach the parents.
Exactly.
So it's like we can't expect the nanny to like follow a perfect schedule. But like
and they're a part of the day to day. Like they need to be looped in on what changes you're trying to make so that you can be consistent. Because like when we are sleep training, the daytime plays such a big part.
Oh my gosh,
in the nighttime sleep. So that's why a lot of times when we're working with families, like if they have a nanny come or a grandma or an aunt or a sister, we are like do they want to be texting us?
Yeah.
Or like, can you add them? Yeah, we'll
Yeah.
talk to them because it's important that they know what's going on so that they can help the overall situation.
And too, I think it's good, like, if like they are sleep training and we'll have the sitter come do bedtime one time, so that, like, if it's a new bedtime, obviously, to like teach the baby and stuff that, like, no matter who's there, no matter who's watching them, bedtime routine is going to be the same.
Yeah, that's important, I think.
Although I will say that, and I don't know, like, if you've noticed, but bedtime, a lot of times, like when we're sleep training, the child will do better with the sitter. Do you feel that way?
Yeah. Because it's like they release all their emotions and everything with the people they're most comfortable with. So, like, the parents are screwed.
Forever.
It's like when your kids go to school and they're like,
I know.
they're amazing.
I wish every student was like Blakely.
Sorry, Blakely?
What? Jeff won't even like have more kids because he's like, what if we have another girl? Like, we can't handle it. Can I tell you what they cried about today?
What?
So Blakely was crying because she has a talent show on Friday, but we are going on a cruise. And Jeff said she could pick. He's like, you don't have to come. You can pick. Like, gave her the option. And she was crying because he gave her the option. And then Caleb today in the car was crying because Jeff is his dad. And Blakely was saying that he's her dad.
Oh my gosh.
So that's how the morning
That's
went.
honestly like.
And then Carter lost a tooth and he was crying.
This morning?
Yeah. And then he was
What?
crying because he was really upset because his teeth aren't growing in and he thinks they're missing.
He'll get there.
I
What
know.
tooth did he lose?
Another bottom one. So it's missing.
You should hear them in my car. Like, it's like nonstop with that kind of stuff where I'm
I
like,
know.
because
But they're closer together in
yeah,
your
because in her car they're all in their separate, like they're not touching.
You could drive my car.
I can't drive. You drive a bus, so I have one time, and then like I'm trying to take the turns like so slow, but even still, everybody's like, what? Because it's so long. I could drive it if I had to, but prefer mine with the screaming kids.
Yeah, they just fight the whole time.
Yeah, they're like, don't touch me. Don't. Carter's touching my seat. Carter's touching my seat. I'm like, Blakely, he has half the room that you do. He's touching my seat. And then Carter's like, Blakely's staring at me. Blakely's staring at me. Kendall, Blakely's staring at me. And Caleb's in his own world over there. You know, it's funny recently. It's like when they argue and like I just have to ignore it in the car sometimes. And then they realize how ridiculous they are. And so then they start laughing at themselves because they're arguing about something so stupid. And then it makes me laugh because I'm like, thank you. You get it now?
Number one nanny advice, ignore.
Ignore them. At least while you're driving. Don't let them make you crash.
All right, it's time for some Q&As. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. How can I help nanny care for baby and my feral 2.5-year-old who is used to going on outings every day? Personally, how long do you think it was till you went on an outing?
Like month, right?
Yeah.
Like I was just at home for a while, getting used to it.
Yeah. I think that it's okay if your kid's like used to getting like outings, right? Like that's something that they do with you. You're the parent. But when it comes to a sitter, I personally feel like you could do, and obviously it depends on their schedule, right?
Yeah.
But like if they could leave during a nap time or something, or like when one of them's awake, or you know what I mean? Like trying to figure out what's like time of day would be easiest to leave. But like also not feeling bad about letting them like watch a movie.
Yeah.
Like something that you know will get them to like calm down and like not be crazy. Just like let them do. Like it's one time.
Yeah.
Right.
Like it's not an everyday thing. Yeah.
If it is an everyday thing, then you need to find someone that's capable of doing outings.
I think you need to get comfortable with it. If you're going to be with a family that just has that like age dynamic, then like you have to be able to get to a point where you can balance both of them. Because there are things that can be done, like a carrier while you're letting the 2-year-old go run around at the park, or you're in the stroller and the 2-year-old or 3-year-old has their scooter, you know, like there's ways to balance it. But I like that you said, like, have some time at home first.
It's okay to chill.
Get used to it.
Yeah.
And then go from there.
Even if they bought them like an activity book or something, like something cool to open or like do.
We used to like paint rocks straight up. Like we would be in the backyard. This is when you had the trampoline and you had like the playground back there. We would take Carter's construction toys and dig in the dirt. We would find bugs. We would like, there's so much to do at home that.
We didn't even have a pool then. And there's tons of accounts online that have activities for toddlers too.
Yeah.
Like things I would never think of.
Yeah. And they're easy. Like easy things you can do with like household items too.
Yeah. Next question. Knowing the experience of the nanny, can we request to follow the strict schedule? So this is like trust, right? I mean, they can give you their experience. They can give you their references. But at the end of the day, that's where it's like, I needed to meet you, right? And like have you come over because I feel like you just know.
They can say anything. Anybody can say anything.
Especially when it comes to a job, right?
Yeah.
I think that obviously you can read through that stuff, right? And like call people, but at the end of the day, you have to feel good about it. And you have to ask your own questions and just like, I just feel like you can tell like when someone's normal or not.
When you know, you know.
And I think it's okay to give a schedule. I mean,
it's helpful. It's helpful.
Keeps the day predictable. It gives them a chance to like do what you want. And then that way you like know what you're walking into when you get home.
Yep. Or if you're having to like shorten wake windows or anything like that, like walk them through it. Show them how that's done. Write it down for them so that they know. Give them a cheat sheet. Have them take notes of the nap times. Like, especially like if you have a nanny that's watching a baby, those things are expected. Like the schedule's important. So they should be willing to work with you. And
it makes it easier for them.
Yes.
Is it polite to run a background check, driving record, or am I crazy? 1,000%.
Run that up. Run it up.
I mean, could you imagine regretting not doing that?
No. I mean, care.com, Sitter City, places like that. If you're creating a profile on those apps, like they're going to run a background check on you and like store that in their system. But even if you're not going through those, run it up. Like, you want to know who you're working with, and
they're watching your kids.
Like that's the most personal thing.
100%.
Yeah.
You're not crazy.
You're not crazy.
Good expectations to set for discipline for babysitter. I feel like my kids go crazy. I feel like we missed that part because they were so little, right? So like the behaviors weren't like we're in behaviors now.
Yeah.
I think that like talking about what you do and like how you do things,
setting the expectations.
And then also, doesn't this like come into play of like having them come before you actually leave?
Yes.
Like so they can see like how, and obviously
that
they're
was
never
helpful
gonna
for me.
do it.
Like being around you guys, I see like the rhythm of like, you know, things that are okay, things that are not okay, how you handle certain things, and like I can pick up on that.
And I do think like no matter what, like the sitter's always gonna be like nicer and cooler than the parents. You know what I mean? But like there's also a line with being like disrespectful or like misbehaving as opposed to being like standing on the couch. Right? You know what I mean? Like fun stuff versus like serious stuff. Like you never want your kid misbehaving. But also you want them, the sitter or nanny, handling it a way that you are okay with. So talking to them, like giving them scenarios of like if anything goes wrong or like this is where we have them sit to take a break, and like parenting is like different I think even within the last like 5 years. So like especially with discipline, obviously like people are doing different techniques, like someone might have like a breathing technique that, you know what I mean, like that works, and like you have to tell the person that's going to be with them what you do and how you do it and when it's appropriate for them to do it. Otherwise, just text me. Yeah. Text. Shoot it up.
Hit them up. Say, how do I, this is what's going on. I've never dealt with it before. What do you think I should do? Well, how would you like me to handle it?
Like, remember the time that I don't know if she bit you or what happened, but like Blakely you had to put her in her crib for a few minutes.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause there were times like
you needed
like I would be with her and like she would be absolutely losing it. And like sometimes there's like nothing you can do. And it's like, like she needs some quiet time. I need some quiet time for a few minutes to like regroup and be like, okay, whew. Like it's good for everyone. It's good for the kids. They have the structure, the consistency. with the parents to the babysitter, and like they know that like we're a unit.
Yeah.
Like, which I always appreciated because I've been with families where that's not the case. And it makes it really hard because I want to like showing up every day and like being around the kids. And sometimes if you're not aligned and behaviors get out of control, that can happen.
But I remember you text me and I'm like, yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
How to manage the parent anxiety when we need to find a nanny. So this is a hard one for me because I don't feel like I'm a super anxious person. But I mean, I babysat my whole life. And then like we had babysitters growing up. So like it wasn't like a foreign concept by any means. Like and I know my parents weren't like doing care.com or Sitter City, right? It's like, oh, you got a kid over there and the neighbor next door? Sure, come on over.
Background check.
We'll be back at midnight. Yeah, like here's $20. So I mean, with that in mind, like that like 9 times out of 10, like it's gonna be okay, right? Like you might come home to like who knows, but like they're all alive and they're happy and they had fun, right?
Yeah.
But with the anxiety of it, I think the biggest thing is going to be like understanding where your anxiety lies, right? Like what is anxious about it? Is it you going back to work? Is it the naps? Is it they're not going to sleep anymore? Like what is it, right? And then again, back to having like you over when you're home and getting comfortable with that person in your home and like seeing them with your little one. But like exposure therapy, man. I mean,
start small if you need to.
You won't regret it. I mean, I get it. Like, you have like this child and you're like leaving them alone,
and it gets easier with each kid. Would you say that?
Oh, if I had a kid right now, I'd be like, can the neighbor watch it? Like, sure. Anybody? Takers? The problem is just like, could something happen? Yes, there's stories, right? Like the internet, but like that's why our parents weren't anxious. They didn't have the internet to hear about
all the crazy things. Yeah,
it's just finding someone you're comfortable with and hoping they never leave. Yeah. That is it for today. Next week we'll be talking about your favorites. Naps. We will be figuring out how to navigate those short naps, why they're happening. How to lengthen them, of course, but really understanding like how to go through your day when those short naps are happening to really avoid overtiredness as the day progresses, because the number one culprit of a bad night's sleep is
bad daytime sleep.
So tune in and we can't wait to see you there.